Hey guys, how's it going? It's your boy Luke here for our Sunday Showdown picks for the Sony Open. We're going to go through the weather, my player pool, which is a little bit interesting today with the placement points. Obviously, a little bit more strategy that goes into things, a lot more concentrated ownership, that's for sure. And definitely a lot of fades that we're going to have to make. So let's go ahead and start off with a quick weather review because the weather for today looks exactly like it has the last few days. In the morning, 3 to 4 mile-an-hour winds, and towards the afternoon, when the leaders will be teeing off, they'll be teeing off right around 1:40 a.m. Hawaiian time. Still only 6 to 5 mile-an-hour winds. Now, in days past, it has been closer to maybe 8 to 9 miles an hour. On Thursday, Friday, it was 10 to 12 mile-an-hour winds, showing that we should see yet again another day of benign conditions. The issue yesterday is that they tried to defend this golf course. They put a lot of these pin locations in tricky spots, and I expect them to try and do the same thing today. What we saw yesterday is that some of these better putters really started to shine. Rather than trying to take aggressive approaches at some of these hard to get to pins, a lot of the better players yesterday, like an Adam Svenson, people that posted really nice rounds, took a more conservative approach, was hitting to the middle of greens. Shots gained approach actually became a little bit less important yesterday. We were looking more at the guys that could keep the balls in the fairway, can make their fair share of putts. And even Hideki Matsuyama yesterday lost strokes on approach, yet still put up a really nice round with one of his best ever putting rounds to date. At this point of the golf tournament, Hideki Matsuyama has gained the most strokes he has ever gained at a PGA Tour event through 3 rounds. If he goes out there and gains more than 0.88 strokes on Sunday, will have had his best tournament ever on the greens, which I don't think is something anyone expected. Bermuda grass, especially non-sloping Bermuda grass greens, are by far his worst surface on tour. So there's a major case to be made that he should see some major regression in that category. Probably likely he doesn't even hit that all-time mark. He should go out there, most likely lose strokes on the greens today if the stats have any type of liability, which they do in the long term. We know that. That's why we use these statistics, especially so in golf. Let's talk about the rest of his game because let's move away from the weather. We'll go over to the player pool now, especially because we're talking about Hideki now. And the issue I have with Hideki up top is first and foremost, he's going to be chalk. I have him at 30.7% expected ownership and could very well come on top of that, depending on what type of tournament you're in. If you're in a large field GPP, that should be a relatively accurate number. But if you're playing in a single entry tournament, especially some of those higher dollar single entries, he could be upwards of 50% owned. So again, that really depends on the type of tournament you're looking at. But in the large field tournament, the 100K to first kind of thing, you're looking at right around 30%. So not only has he been putting well above his baseline on the greens, he's also been not hitting the ball very well. He's only gained about 0.2 strokes so far on approach to this week, which for Hideki Matsuyama is not what we're used to seeing. And there could be a case to be made for some positive regression, but one thing we know about shots gained approach is that it is by far the most consistent stat from day to day. The stat that is most likely to regress is going to be shots gained putting. It is by far the most volatile statistic. Number 2, shots gained around the green. It's also a relatively volatile statistic, but off the tee and approach play are by far the most consistent. So is there really a case to be made to expect that to rebound? In my case, no. I expect him to continue to hit the ball like he is, which to this point is a PGA Tour average player. That's not going to kill him, right? The issue is I don't expect him to go out there and gain 3 strokes on the greens once again. So he could very well go out there, shoot 1 or 2 under today. That wouldn't surprise me at all. And given the scoring conditions, that's going to be right about average. In terms of Showdown, that's not enough to get there. I mean, we have a guy over here, Russell Henley, which we'll get to here in a second. He's priced higher than Hideki Matsuyama, but I expect him to go out there, have a little bit more success, shoot 3 or 4 under. Not only will that help him keep the lead, obviously gets more points with those birdies as well. So up top, I'm definitely taking Russell Henley. He's going to be my lock today. I'm going to have him 100% over Hideki Matsuyama. To try and play both together at 10-8 and then $10,000 is almost impossible, at least if you want to make a well-rounded, what I would consider a competitive lineup today. So that's going to be my take up top. You need to make a strong take. If you try to take 50% of each player, you're likely going to be matching the field. And if you want to, take a 4-on-4 versus the field with the rest of your lineups, go ahead and do that, right? You can try and differentiate elsewhere. I understand that type of strategy, but you're also really handicapping yourself with the salary. So I wouldn't recommend trying to use those two together. Let's talk about some of the guys who could use as your second man in, because for me, I am going to have 100% Russell Henley. It's going to make my process relatively easy here. I'm going to be mixing in all 4 of these options right here as a second man in. So let's start with Billy Horschel to start. He's $9,000. Didn't have the best day yesterday. He was in a really good spot to jump up the board, get me into the top 50 or even top 25 of the large field GPP, and kind of fell flat on his face, right? Went out there, had a very middling round. What I like about Billy Horschel is first and foremost the course fit. The metrics aren't bearing that out because he hasn't played very well or very much at all, frankly, over the last 2-3 months of this year. But at the same time, he's a shorter hitter. He's great with those wedges on Bermuda grass, one of the best putters in this field. And if anybody's going to go out, put up a nuclear round today of something like 7-8, potentially even a 59, that's definitely out there with these conditions, by the way. Would not be surprised at all if someone out there today and shot a 59. Billy Horschel has the putting ability to actually do something like that. And he also has the streaky irons to actually do something like that. Same thing with Kevin Kisner. That's why I like him there at $8,800. In fact, Kevin Kisner, probably my second favorite play on the entire slate. Fact is, he's starting 3 shots behind of Hideki Matsuyama. I expect him to more than make up that gap. And he's a good $1,200 less expensive. You're talking about, I'd say, half the ownership, a little bit more than half the ownership. You guys get the point here, right? Easier to get leverage on. Very solid price tag right there. Doesn't handicap the rest of your lineup by trying to take 2 guys over 10K. It's, for me, going to be the clear choice as my second man. And again, with the course fit, gaining a third of a stroke per round on Bermuda grass, great with the wedges. Had a great performance last week at Kapalua, which is by far not his favorite surface to be playing on. I really like these 2 plays here. I liked him yesterday. Kevin Kisner obviously came through for us. Billy Horschel did not. I'm going to be playing both of them once again. Taylor Gooch is probably my favorite play. He's $9,500. He's starting at -11. Not ideal, right? So he's starting a little bit farther back than somebody like a Kevin Kisner, but at the same time, just like Billy Horschel, great course fit, has been in the best form of pretty much anyone on the field that we've seen. Sorry, I have no idea. There's like people screaming outside. Hopefully you guys can't hear that. Sorry, getting back to this. Taylor Gooch at -11, though, $9,500. I mean, he's a little bit more expensive. He's also coming in at much lower ownership than somebody like a Kevin Kisner. So if you're looking for more of a lower owned pivot, somebody who's also a really solid course fit, more than capable of going out there shooting 7-8 under par, that kind of thing, he's going to be your guy. Scrolling up one more to Harris English. If you were in 150 max, I think he'd be worth a few looks. I mean, he's definitely got the high upside that we're looking for. Much like a Billy Horschel, I played him yesterday with that same type of hope. Didn't go out there and have that type of performance we're looking for. But the thing is with these guys at 8 under, right? And I'm going to go ahead and talk about the starting score a little bit here because it's important. If these guys go out here and have a really solid round, something like 7-8 under par, that's going to be enough to get them plenty of placement points. You're looking at least a top 5, I would imagine. At very least a top 10. You would be hoping to have a top 5 at that type of performance. And if you're getting those kind of placement points on top of the inherent value of making 8 or 9 birdies in a round, that's going to be enough to be in the optimal lineup, right? Whereas somebody like a Webb Simpson, who unfortunately is going to be a fade here, if he goes out and shoots 8 under par, he might not crack the top 10. And if he doesn't crack the top 10 at $10,200, even with all those birdies on the board, somebody like a Harris English or Billy Horschel who does the same thing, going to clearly be above them. So that's what I'm looking at there. I'm really trying to prioritize some of the guys who are at the least at the middle of the board, not the bottom. So that really does take some of these guys out of play, right? So first and foremost, a Webb Simpson out of play, takes a Denny McCarthy out of play, unfortunately. Henrik Norlander, probably not worth investing in. Hudson Swafford. I'd say the cutoff line, 8 under, 7 under, if you really want to push it. If you're expecting that guy to go out, shoot something in the low 60s, 61, 62, then by all means, play Mark Leishman, right? But to me, not priorities on this slate. My personal cutoff line is going to be 8 under par. So you have a comment down in the chat, and I'll let you guys know if you have any questions or any lineups you want any feedback on. Feel free to go ahead and put that down in the chat. I'll get to that when I see it. Barry Barbara says, "Hey, Luke, your Decky, Kisner, Mitchell lineup." Oh, yeah, dude. That was, I remember you mentioning that yesterday, and I thought Hideki was a really safe play. And he did the exact opposite of what we expected. So, right, he didn't gain on approach. So I don't know what you're running with here for round 4, but that was an insane round 3 core. I mean, Keith Mitchell, right? He's the slot machine kind of guy out there. He's going to go out there, either shoot 7-8 under or shoot over par. And yeah, I liked that lineup a whole lot. Kisner could have been a little bit better. I had a ton of Kevin Kisner yesterday. I had like 6 or 7 of my lineups out of my 20 that were within 1 or 2 points of cashing. And dang, Kevin Kisner could have made one more putt. We would have went from a slightly profitable day to a very profitable day yesterday. But is what it is. We move on to today's slate. And that was despite having 7 of my lineups. I uploaded a CSV at the last second trying to get 7 more of my lineups in. And apparently Draftkings didn't register it. I got the message that said 20 out of 20 lineups updated, like you normally do when you upload a CSV. And apparently it didn't. So yeah, we dealt with that yesterday and still were able to cash. So hey, it could be a whole lot worse. Let's keep moving down the board though. So we've gone over our first man in, who's going to be Russell Henley in every lineup, and then of course some of these guys that we'll be mixing in. Of course, my favorite option being Kevin Kisner, who had a very solid day yesterday as well. A few other chalky options you're going to see people mix in is a Christian Bezainhout, also somebody like a Seamus Power. You're looking at 20% ownership plus on both of them. Both of them are great course fits. They're why they were in my player pool going into the week. I'll be mixing them in here and there, right? I think Christian Bezainhout's the more likely option to be in more of my lineups. Just a better price tag than Seamus Power at $9,200. He's only $8,400. Sure, he's not starting quite as far up the board, but if we were to take somebody like a Seamus Power, that's going to funnel us into the low 6K range. If we're trying to take 3 guys above, let's say $8,800, Kisner, Power, and Henley, which is where I'd start a lineup if I wanted to fit a Seamus Power in. We're really looking at a lot of salary that we're going to have to just take off the table, right? We're spending in that low 6K ranges, which is far from ideal. If we wanted to go and spend all of our salary by taking 3 guys like that, you're also funneled into a lot of the same combinations and permutations of players. You're dealing with the same type of value players. I mean, everyone, we're going to get to those here in a second. There's about 4 or 5 chalk value plays today that pretty much everyone's going to try and funnel in. And there's a few that I will have some exposureship to, but there's going to be a lot more people I just take shots on down low. Because again, if somebody goes out there, shoots 8 under today, and they're starting at 8 under par, that's going to be more optimal than the guy who's starting at 14 under par and only shoots 3 under par. Even though he'll end up higher on the leaderboard at the end of the day, he won't end up with a higher amount of fantasy points. And that's something that so many people in this industry overlook. They far too overvalue these starting score points rather than the actual scoring, which comes down to birdies. So let's go down and talk about some of these value plays. Again, I really do like Christian Bezainhout. I think he makes a whole lot of sense. Matt Kutcher, also extremely expensive now. So he's $9,300. He's essentially priced up with Seamus Power, all those type of guys. He'll be in my player pool, much like a Seamus Power is. I mean, you guys can see I at least have Power owned in this type of instance, but at the same time, not people I'm looking to get active leverage on, more people that I'm looking to match the field on. Again, these more second man options that are just higher tier players to begin with are the guys that I'm looking to get leverage on because they're coming in lower owned. And I think they have higher upside, just much better players, similar course fits. And just because they haven't played well for the first 3 days doesn't mean they're not going to turn it around. I mean, golf's a volatile sport to begin with, and I'd much rather take a player's long-term pedigree than their short-term sample size of just 3 rounds. So that's what I got to say on that. Russell Knox, probably the first value play that's going to be chalky down here. I'm at 13.1% ownership. So that's really why I'm prioritizing him. I mean, he's much lower owned than some of these other chalk value options that we're about to get into here. Starting at 12 under par. So not at 14 under par, like a few of them are going to be, but very solid course fit. Had a nice day yesterday, shot 6 under par. Whenever it gets windy, which we're not expecting windy conditions today, but you never know on Hawaii. Out of nowhere, you get some of these trade winds that really pick up. If that ends up happening, Russell Knox will be more than capable of adapting to that. Has one of the lower ball flights on all of the PGA Tour. It's from Scotland, makes a whole lot of sense. Got to be able to play in the wind if you're from Scotland. Like his birdie or better percentage, like his wedge play, he's always been one of the better players from 50 to 125 yards on all of the PGA Tour. Historically, he's not the best Bermuda grass putter, but I can get over that given the fact that he's only $7,400. He's also starting in a really attractive spot of the board and also relatively low ownership. So do like him as a value play here. Brant Seneca as well, right? Starting 1 shot back from Russell Knox. He's $7,300. We liked him going into the week because of the course fit. We will continue to do so, getting 0.4 shots game putting per round on Bermuda grass for his career. And that's over like 2,000 measured rounds. I mean, the guy's been around forever. He's a dinosaur at this point. That is a well-established number right there. Whereas some of these guys out here, like a Grayson Sig, for example, only have 12 measured rounds in the database. So this negative 0.96 number there pretty much means nothing to me. Whereas this, 0.4 number for Brant Seneca is pretty much the gospel. I mean, the guy's good on Bermuda grass. We know this. Let's go down to Hudson Swafford. Probably not a priority. Mentioned it before. He's starting a little bit too far back. Even if he goes out and has one of those ceiling type of rounds, somebody that's starting at 7-8 over, that has that same type of rounds going to outscore him. And because we have so many people in this field, especially down low, that are in that range, just would rather take shots on those guys. You say Kutcher today, you like him? Yeah, me too. I'm going to have right around the field. I don't know if he has a 7 or an 8 under round in him, but I really expect him to go out there, shoot 4 or 5 under par, that kind of thing, and kind of be like your 5th or 6th highest score in an optimal type of build. That's the way that I would see a Matt Kutcher today. Is somebody that you might want to have for an optimal build, but you probably don't have to have, if that makes sense. Let's go down to Lucas Glover. He's starting at 13 under par, being completely overlooked. He's almost single-digit owned. He's not the best putter on Bermuda grass historically, but is an excellent short iron player. So we mentioned it before yesterday. There was a much higher reliance on some of these guys' short game, some of their putting. Lucas Glover gained strokes putting yesterday, which I don't expect to continue here in Sunday. We are going to see a little bit of a reset back to irons being important, though, right? The pin locations yesterday, if you guys are just joining in, were extremely difficult. Took a little bit of the emphasis on iron play out of it because they were so hard to get to. Nobody was stopping the ball in some of these tiers. So regardless of your iron play, you're pretty much in the same position as somebody who's one of the worst iron players on tour. So that's why we saw the type of round that we saw yesterday. Guys that have historically been great at this golf course played horrible yesterday. So I should tell you everything you guys have to know about the conditions there. So Lucas Glover, if it returns to more of a traditional setup at Waialae, which I expect, right? It's Sunday. They're not going to try and do anything wild on a Sunday at any tour stop, let alone one we've been there since 1965. Should be traditional today, and I expect Lucas Glover to have a good day as a result, particularly if he continues that putting. Hey, if he can continue that putting over until Sunday, could post something real low, and he's only 13 under par, right? He could easily vault himself into the top 5. So yeah, I'd rather go to guys like a Lucas Glover or Russell Knox. Let's talk about the chalk options I'm not playing. First and foremost, Adam Svenson. He's 14 under par, sure. So he's got 1 stroke on Lucas Glover. Should he be twice as owned as somebody that we have seen win on the PGA Tour before? He's been playing forever. He's a much better iron player than Svenson. For his career, he's actually a better putter on Bermuda grass. No, he shouldn't, right? So these are the type of situations in Showdown that you're trying to take advantage of, is when you find deficiencies in this ownership. Because there's such a reliance on these placement points, people are really going to flock to these guys at 14 under par. And I get it, right? You know, you're starting out with the lead, but by the end of the day could essentially mean nothing. For him to be relevant at 14 under par, I mean, he's not going to win this golf tournament. He'd have to go out there, probably shoot 4 or 5 under par at the very least. And that's possible, right? He's obviously gotten himself to 14 under par through 3 days. He's clearly on that type of track, but historically not the best player. He's made 3 of his last 7 cuts. His best finish is a 22nd place finish at the Bermuda Championship. And so yeah, he's never been in this situation before. So I expect some nerves, that's for sure. And nerves, like, it's not winning nerves, right? Finishing top 5 for a player like a Svenson would be like life-changing for him. So it's top 5 nerves that he's going to have. It's not winning nerves. And yeah, I don't expect him to play very well today. Someone else that we are going to have a little bit of exposure to, but much like a Matt Kutcher, don't love the play. I'm not going to be over the field or anything. That's going to be Haotong Li. He's in a position to, much like an Adam Svenson, to go out there. You know, if he has a 4 or 5 under round, hit the optimal lineup that type of way. The reason why I like him a little bit more, he's lower owned, and a lot of that comes down to the price, right? He's $400 more than somebody like an Adam Svenson. And the reason why people are able to fit Svenson into the lineups more than Haotong Li is they're trying to get Hideki and Henley into lineups. And if you do that, you quite literally can't fit Haotong Li into your lineup. You're capped off. Like, if you want to take anyone in the 8K range, it's just not possible. So a lot of it comes down to the lineup construction there. I expect Haotong Li to come in even lower owned than what I have him projected for right here. And Svenson will probably come in higher owned when I have him here. A lot of that, again, comes down to the lineup construction of just trying to fit in a guy at 10.8 and a guy at $10,000 into the same lineup. It's not the easiest thing to do, right? Unless we have some of these value options at like $6,300, $6,100 on this slate. And we don't really have that, right? At least for these guys at like 14 under par. They've all been priced up adequately, which is good to see from Draftkings. You know, hats off to them. They waited a little bit longer than usual to release the pricing, which was a very smart move on their end, because now we have guys in the 7K range that should be, right? We don't have, usually there's that one guy at $6,000 every week that's starting 3 shots behind. It ends up being like 50% owned. I'm glad we don't have that this week. Let's talk about a few of the flyers down low I like. And this is where you're going to win a GPP, okay? Like I said before, you have those chalk pieces. I'm not even sure they're going to be in the optimal lineup, because every single round on the PGA Tour, we're going to have 3 or 4 of these unknown guys go out and shoot at least 6 under, especially in these type of conditions at this easy of a golf course, especially at a golf course that doesn't give up a ton of bogeys. So somebody like a Satoshi Kodaira, who has been putting the ball extremely well this week, hasn't really been hitting it the best. He's a really good wedge game. Maybe he goes out there and catches fire with the putter today. Really like him at $6,500. Luke Donald has been Mr. Consistency. He didn't have the best first round. Came out, made 5 straight birdies in a row on Friday. Yesterday, put up yet another solid round, 4 under par. He's only $6,100. Didn't see a price increase. He's starting a little bit farther behind, but if he goes out and he posts 7 under today, that's going to be enough to be in the optimal lineup, right? He's going to end up in the top 10. He's going to end up with a ton of points with those birdies. It's guys like a Kodaira, guys like a Luke Donald today, that in my opinion are going to win you a GPP. Davis Riley, same type of thing, immaculate ball striker. Now he's more expensive, right? But that's also why he's the lowest owned guy in this range. And the fact of the matter is, he's somebody who's like a Justin Thomas. You've heard some of the announcers compare him to Justin Thomas. He went to University of Alabama. JT is his mentor, and he's got the ball striking stats of Justin Thomas. Gains over half a stroke per round on approach, consistently gaining off the tee. His issue, you can see the putter, but you can see on this surface, Bermuda grass is a gainer, much like Justin Thomas. It's crazy how similar those two players are. If we're going to get 80% of what Justin Thomas is at this type of golf course, sign me up for Davis Riley. That's for damn sure. It's just guys like that I'd much rather take shots on than somebody who's 20, 30, even 40% owned. In certain contests today, Svenson's going to be 50% plus owned, especially some of those single entry contests I was talking about before, some of those higher dollar contests where you're playing a $50 single entry. Yeah, you're going to see some inflated ownership. And it's because people aren't willing to take risk when they first off only have one lineup. Second of all, the higher dollar it is, people become soft, right? They change their process. They think about the implications of the money a little bit more. Whereas if you're entering a $1 single entry and you have thousands of dollars on your account, you'll play over the hell you want. And to me, that's a backwards process. You need to be using the same process regardless of your entry fees, or you're not going to have success. That's just true. And a lot of that comes down to contest selection, right? If you're playing a contest that's making you change your strategy because of the amount of money you're putting in, you're playing too much money. Flat out, you're playing too much money. You're playing irresponsibly. That's what I have to say about that. Hayne Buckley there at -10. Very solid course fit. The guy's been an absolute stud since he got onto the PGA Tour. And if he's going to come in at sub 5% ownership, another guy down low I'm willing to take shots on. He has more than enough ceiling to go and shoot 7 or 8 under. Same thing with Grayson Sigg. He's had a great week, very consistent. Hasn't had that one pop round to this point, but could very well come on Sunday. The guy is historically really good on Bermuda grass. Again, there's only 12 measured rounds for Grayson Sigg here, so you got to cut the guy some slack. Really like him going forward. See, Brant Seneca, we already talked about. And yeah, that's going to be it for today, guys. I don't want to go into too much detail here. We'll cover any questions if anyone has down in chat. Isaiah says, yeah, JT's going down on hill, fortunately. Great tournament, though. I'm going with Hideki. Yeah, I'm a Henley fan today, but I could see it. If Hideki learns how to hit his irons, it's really coming down to that. But he hasn't done that so far this week. And so yeah, we'll have to see. But I got Henley there. JT Poston, yeah, man. What is he at right now? Isn't he like -5 or something like that? Let me check. Yeah, he's -5 right now. Yeah, man, I'm not playing him today. I'm worried about the irons. He looked good on Thursday, but really kind of fell off a cliff there. But good luck with all of your lineups today, guys. Barry says Connors today. Oh boy, I know that. I know who you're fading, but I hope Connors plays well, man. He's all my top dollar lineups. Everything I have that's in the top 100 right now of the large field GPP has Connors, Gooch, Henley, and someone else. It's one of the and Kutcher. I have all 4 of those guys in all my big time lineups. And the only guy real stinking it right now is Corey Connors. So yeah, let's hope he turns it around for my sake and your Showdown lineups today. I'm not playing him in Showdown today, so I guess I'll be happy in one way or another, right? If I end up fading him in Showdown, he doesn't play well, then I'll be happy for that. And of course, if he turns it around for my 4-round stuff, I'll be happy there. So we got the good old life hedge going. If you guys are watching this on replay, feel free to go ahead and put any questions you have down in the chat. We do have about an hour until lock, so I'll answer any of them that I see. But good luck today, guys.